Hello, everyone. Thanks for coming outside with me today. Today, we go to the very mountainous state of West Virginia. We're going to be talking with Brian all things when it comes to saddle hunting, even though it's not technically a young man's game. Talking about also a little bit with the buck allocations that we see across the state. And this is something that's been very new to me, talking with a whole bunch of different people from across the country and across the world. But before we get into that, if you want to be just like Brian or anybody else you hear on the Average Jack Archery podcast, please send me an email, averagejackarchery@gmail.com. Find me on Instagram and Facebook. Leave a comment on YouTube. Love to have you on the show. But this show is not about you today. It's about Brian. And Brian, thank you so much for joining us from the wonderful state of West Virginia.
Thank you.
Go ahead, and for the folks at home, so they kind of have a general idea of a little bit of your background, how long you've been hunting and that sort of stuff. Introduce yourself for the folks at home.
I will be 54 years old August 18th, which is 3-4 weeks away.
Yeah.
I've been actually hunting since I was probably 15, 16. Nobody in my family ever hunted, so I was pretty much self-taught. And back in the day, which I can say that because I'm that old, we didn't have internet. You didn't have YouTube. I got most of my knowledge from Field and Stream, Bowhunter magazine. That was my favorite. It's just stuff like that. And talking to other people, as a young kid, I just hung out at the local sporting goods stores. And, I'll listen more than I talk because I was pretty shy anyway. But I just would sit there and just soak up knowledge like a sponge. And it still took me several years before I got my first deer. And at the age of 20, I did move to North Carolina for 3 years. And due to my work schedule, when I did come in, my hunting was very, very, very limited. Because you come in and time you spent with friends and family and all that, you just don't have a lot of time for anything else. So I was there for 3 years, and when I did move back, I've always acknowledged that me being gone for those 3 years and not being able to do it just lit a fire in me that's never went out. And if anything, it just ignited it even more. And you can ask my wife about that. She actually told me one time. She's actually told me several times. She said, "I don't know anybody that hunts as much as you do, and never brings nothing home."
Yeah, my poor wife, bless her heart. I'll come home and I'll be like, honey, I might have seen something today, or I couldn't get a shot, and guess I'm gonna have to try again tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead and don't shoot so she get another chance to go back.
Yeah, no, but I know better. If that critter's in range, I got to skewer it. Otherwise, I'm going to be up the creek without a paddle.
Yeah, but I am, mostly bow hunter. I do hunt with, I small game hunt somewhat, squirrel, rabbit, whatever. Love turkey hunting. I've only been turkey hunting for about 12 years. And I would just like saddle hunting. I wish I would have got into it a lot sooner. But I've been started out with a bow, and Lord willing, I hope I die with the bow in my hand. That's just how much I love it. I just love bow hunting. I'll pack a gun or a muzzleloader, but those seasons are really short. We have a 3-month bow season here, and we get to hunt 7 days a week now. So, we have plenty of time.
Don't rub it in. Don't rub it in.
Sorry. Well, the Sunday hunting actually just started about 2 years ago. So
you're still rubbing it in.
Yeah. Well, I'm with PA like you are with West Virginia. I really have no idea, how y'all's how everything goes up there with you.
Yeah.
So
we've gotten a few. They've given us a few Sundays this year. We're taking baby steps in the right direction. We got a Sunday at archery, a Sunday at rifle, and a Sunday I think in bear season or something like that. So we're headed in the right direction.
Well, that's probably usually how it starts out. Actually, our Sunday hunting started out with just select counties. They actually put it on ballots, for the public to vote on. And it got to about where half the state was actually, legalized for Sunday hunting on private land only. And then in 2018, they legalized it statewide for private land only. And then last year in 2019, they made it legal for public and private land. So
I hope that's where we're headed, because I think that's a lot of states have done. I think Virginia did that. Maybe Maryland did it. Some other states in Northeast have done, kind of that slow integration. I kind of hope that we follow that, because I think it's a good idea. I really do think it's a good idea. I think it eases the public's mind a little bit, and we have a lot of people that use our public land here in PA that aren't hunters and fishermen and everything else. And I think they're a little scared about that. And I think slowly integrating it makes it better over time. So you mentioned saddle hunting, and it's kind of, as you said, it's one of those things you wish you got into earlier. And poor guys like John Eberhard are like, yeah, I've been saying that for 35 years, and I think it's unfortunate for me, and we share the same issue with why we're in saddle hunting now, is because we have a bad back situation, just ability to sit in a chair and that sort of stuff. And as terrible as to say, I wish my back got worse sooner, so I could have started saddle hunting a little sooner. But I know that I jumped in head over heels, and you did as well. So why don't you tell the folks at home a little bit about that? Because I think people really do, and I get messages from folks. Saddle hunting's a young man's game. It's for sure, you're younger, you're more athletic, maybe. I'm a little stiffer, a little older, this, that, and everything. But you took to it like a fish to water.
Oh yeah, and to me, I think being older might help you because you ain't got all that big bulk to carry around. Bulk and weight is the two biggest things that draw me to it. I've hunted out of summits, APIs, hawk, both climber and portable stands. And I think the largest stand I ever had was like a 12-pound portable, and you still got to carry sticks or whatever. So I mean, you're looking 20, 30 pounds, not including your bow and your gear, all that sort of stuff. My saddle set up right now. Of course, I told you I just recently got to cruise. I've got 2 dumb pouches. I went to Oplex ropes this year. I've got a Tether's back band, and I've got their hip strap. My saddle with my ropes, bags, and everything, total weight 4 pounds.
Right.
And that's your tree stand and safety harness into one.
Right.
The heaviest part of my setup is my 3 Hawk helium sticks, and I've actually went to Daisy Chain and Steel this year with them. They weigh 9 pounds for 3 sticks. That's the heaviest part of mine. And another thing about saddle hunting too, like your tree stand, all your bulk and weight's in primarily one thing. With the saddle, it's different equipment. All your bulk and weight is not in just one particular item too, so that helps out too. But it's definitely not a younger man. I mean, it's for anybody really. Anybody can do it. It's more of a mind thing, I guess, than anything. But I will never, Lord willing, I will never go back to another tree stand. Matter of fact, last year I had a Hawk climber, Hawk portable, and a big game portable. They was all gone by started hunting season. I sold them all.
Craigslist, here we go.
I only had the saddle for like 2 months, but I was already hooked. I told you earlier, I was biting at the bit to get, be able to get a real hunting action, other than just shooting at a 3D target out in my backyard. I was really wanting to get into the woods and try this thing out. But.
And you told me earlier, tell the folks at home, like I know for me, my biggest thing that I guess I didn't explain it, but like my biggest qualm that I had with the saddle hunting thing was, well, I guess why I switched and felt really comfortable going to a saddle aside from the back problem was that going, from my climbing stick onto a hang on stand, even though I was tethered in the whole time, there was just that little bit of slack, that little bit of moment where like, this could be a part where I fall and I'm swinging against the tree and that sort of stuff. Whereas in a saddle, there's never a point where I don't feel very secure and in control the whole time, from the time I leave the ground to the time I'm on my platform. And you mentioned about your first big thing getting used to was getting away from the tree.
Leaning back, nothing being behind you, because like I said, in the tree stand, you always got the tree back there behind you, and like I said, with my bad back, I couldn't sit for long periods of time, so I did most of my time standing, and then I would, lean back against the tree. When you get up in saddle, there's nothing back there.
Yeah.
And something I forgot to mention earlier, and I'm sure you've probably seen it, speaking of Jared with Tethered, have you ever seen that video he did? I fell out of my saddle.
I think so. I don't remember though. Probably.
It's hilarious. It is hilarious. And I actually showed that to my wife when she kept telling me I was crazy for getting in a saddle. I don't know if it helped her calm her down any or not. But yeah, if you can look that up, I think it's on Hunt Appalachians. I don't know if it's on Tethered website. But yeah, I fell out of my saddle. These things, and it's just like everything else. If you don't do it properly, it's not going to do you any good. It's just like everything else. But these things, in my personal opinion, if you use the right equipment and use it the way it's supposed to, they are twice as safe as any tree stand you'll ever be in. There's no doubt in my mind.
And one thing that is interesting that I think that we talked a little bit earlier about, I think we should unpack a little bit more too, is like getting into like I could put this hang on that's sitting here on the wall behind me. I could put it a foot off the ground. I just feel like I'm sitting in a chair a foot off the ground. Like there's nothing to get more comfortable with. Same thing's true with the climber. But with the saddle, like talk about how you started feeling comfortable with it, right? You started from the ground up.
Yeah, yeah, I did. I started with the tethered mantles last year, and I got the Predator platform, and I ordered three Hawk Key limb sticks, the 2019 ones that had the Versa button on them. I absolutely love them. But when I got the platform, I only put like a foot, just enough where I could step up on it. And I did that for, I don't know, several days, a week maybe. And then when I felt comfortable with that, I just put one stick on there, which I think they're 32-inch sticks. And I would use my lineman belt, even though I was only going up, just that little bit. And I would get up and put my platform up there. And once I got comfortable with one stick, I would go to my second stick. Once I got comfortable there, then I finally got to my third stick. And like I said, I mean, I got my whole complete setup I had by the 1st of August. And our season, both seasons starts last Saturday in September. By the time it was here, I mean, I was perfectly fine with everything. But like I said, I also practiced almost every day. Not only practice shooting out of it, just the whole complete setup. Like I said, I pack my backpack here on my front porch and walk out in my little patch of woods behind my house, which is only a couple 100 feet away, and practice unpacking my backpack, exactly how I was going to do it in the woods so I wouldn't be fumbling around. So, by the time hunting season comes around, I was ready to go. So
And how did
I
you
think it's
find,
important to practice everything.
yeah, how did you find, speaking of the practice of the shooting part, how did you find like that first couple of shots out of the saddle? Like how did you find in terms of your stability and stuff?
It was definitely a learning curve.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was not very good at first. But actually, I didn't start shooting until I went up and down several times to practice my, getting my sticks up and stuff. I probably practiced that for a good solid week before I even took my bow up the tree. Uh, but yeah, it was a little, there's a lot difference between just, hanging off the side of the tree and then, turn to your left or to your right with a bow in your hand and trying to shoot. Yeah. But you say, you still got that same as you do in the tree stand, you got, pivot your hips and stuff. And, of course, the higher up you go too, the steeper the angle it is. So, that's something you need to keep in mind too. But I mean, really, it's no different than a tree stand once you get used to it. Yeah, the Predator platform, that thing is rock solid. I've never had one issue with mine. I absolutely love that thing. And I noticed this year they're coming out with one that's a little bit bigger. I seen the other day.
Yeah, and some people do like that XL kind of platform. They think the original Predator is a little bit smaller. I have size 12 and a half hunting boots, 1,000-gram insulation. I personally don't have a problem getting around on that small platform, pivoting, getting all the shots I need.
Yeah, I've got size 10 or 10 and a half. I think it's my hunting boots. I'm a little bit bigger, but yeah, I have absolutely no problem at all with the space on them. And like I said, side pressure takes side pressure good. I mean, that thing is, if you can it on there the way they showed on some of the videos, no issues at all. And another thing, I've left mine overnight, not on public land, but over on the private land. Like if I hunted a tree one night and I know it's going to be back in next morning, even on a real cold, crisp morning, a lot of times you get up in your tree stand, yeah, it's got that pop and crack. Not one time did I ever hear any pop, crack, squeak, anything out of that thing.
Right.
So, yeah, like I said, it just rocks solid.
Yeah, one time for kicks and giggles, I took my old Gorilla climbing steel tree stand out and just took it out just to put it to a tree and climb up with it to see if really like if the saddle was so much faster. The noise alone, I got 2 foot off the ground, I'm done. I was done. I'm like, how did I live with this amount of noise? Think about how many deer I spooked within a 50, 60, 70-yard radius. I never even got to see. I'm completely silent going up and down the tree. And speaking of going up and down the tree, something that's really happened with me with a saddle. Now, Grant, I'm pretty tall. You're a little bit a little shorter than 6 foot. I'm 6'4". I get up pretty tall, and I lean a lot. So even then, I'm not like in a seated position. I don't feel nearly the need to get as high as I did in the tree stand. Like I always felt like 20 foot had to be like the minimum height for me in a tree stand because I'm sitting there and I feel like, because your feet are only a few feet below you. But now that I'm standing, I feel like 12 to 15 foot with me now being another five, my bow arms could be about another 5, almost 6 feet above that. Now you're talking 18 to 21 feet just to the bow and you're already standing. I don't feel the need to get aside. I don't have fear of heights, but I don't feel the need to get as high. Do you still feel, do you have that sense? Like, did you have the, I have to get high originally, and now you're kind of,
Originally, I did, yeah. And then the same way. I got to realize, but and there's another thing too. You too close to the tree, tree stand, deer comes down, sees a big clumpy thing hanging off the side of the tree. Deer come in. I don't know how many times I grabbed a hold of my tether and just stood straight up on the platform and put my stomach or my chest right in against the tree. I couldn't tell you how many times last year. I mean, I'm a mature does at this, and they're not always easy to get away with. Within 10 yards, just stop and look right up at me and keep on going, because you're so close to the tree. Whether in a tree stand, you got that big, knot hanging out the
right,
side of it.
huge old tree goiter
So,
there.
To me, that's just another bonus
Right.
for the
And
saddle.
this is all anecdotal, of course, what we're saying here, hugging the tree and that sort of stuff. Last year, here in PA, we have all the topography. Down in West Virginia, you have the topography, and I was hunting on a bench, and the top of the ridge, one ridge was above me, like eyeball level, and the bench that I was expecting deer movement was way below me. So I was only about 15 foot off the ground, and down beneath me was another 15, 20 foot at least. But I had two deer, and I'm sitting there with a thermos of coffee, just leaning away from the tree, and I hear him. It's first week of the rut, if you will, there in November, and here comes a doe, and she's up on that ridge. She's eyeball height with me, and she looks right at me. And I'm just sitting there. It's like the gray dawn morning. I know she sees me plain as day. Never. I don't know if I just look like a giant branch coming off the tree, leaning away. I don't know. I know if I had been sitting in my climber, she's blowing, she's gone. She looked right at me, never stomped, never did anything, and she just kept going. And a buck, now granted, bucks during the rut are a little horned up. They got other things to think about. Yeah. But he came in, he did the exact same thing. He stopped, looked at me, and their wind was going away from him, so that was probably another positive. Looked right at me, didn't stomp, didn't do the whole head up and down thing to get me to move, and just kept on going. And that was like a first, like, I'm just sitting there with the thermos of coffee, steam's coming up in my face. I don't look natural at all, I
Yeah,
think. And they didn't even do
yeah,
a single thing that was wigging them out. So for me, I think the concealment, that's interesting. I'll have to play with that tip, what you just mentioned. They're actually pulling up on the bridge and
yeah,
standing on the platform.
yeah. I did that more
Yeah,
than
that's
once.
slick.
Yeah.
I'm literally gonna write that down right now. Stand.
And another thing too, and I've heard a lot of these, keeping the tree between you and the deer. You can't do that in a
Correct.
tree stand. You can't move around the side of the tree, and you
I've
just
done
can't
that.
do it.
I did that a couple of times last year, not because I was trying to hide so I could draw. Just I didn't need them picking me off. I didn't need to screw it around. And it's not a lot of movement too. Like I suffer from, I don't know if it's actually diagnosable or not, RLS, restless leg syndrome. I sit there in a tree stand, my feet just up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. I got ADD so bad, it's like a goldfish up there in the tree. And but just it's not a whole lot. You think you'd be constantly swaying and constantly moving, and I don't. I'm just very stationary. I got a little bit of movement, if there's a breeze or something, but it's just a little shift around that side of that tree, and you're completely concealed. And I did that several times just to stay out of the way because I don't need them in my line of sight if they don't have to be, and just sit there play peekaboo with them for a while. So let's talk about, I've just mentioned the topography here. Let's just unpack this real quick with, West Virginia, and I brought this stat up earlier when we were off air, but in terms of square mile, is West Virginia is Maryland, Delaware, and New Jersey combined, but it has the population of Philadelphia, which is the biggest city in like about 1.5 million people in a space that big. So not very populated. So you are littered with public land. And then you said something which I had never heard of, but it kind of sounds plausible well, you say it about the topography if you flattened it out.
Yeah. If you flatten out West Virginia, I've been told this, I think, a couple times. If you just flatten out West Virginia completely flat, we would be the size of Texas as
Just
far as
because of
landmass
all the
goes.
mountains and everything.
Yeah, just because it's so mountainous and steep. Yeah, it's all Tears Mountains.
Yeah.
I
And
mean,
that when you said that earlier, I was like, there's no way. And the more I got to thinking about it, because I went on X just to look at it, and it's just one giant solid topo line. If you zoom all the way
yeah,
out, you can't even see anything. So it's true big woods in a lot of the places. Now, you hunt a little bit of public, a little bit of private. Most of that's for ease of accessibility. I mean, you got two private pieces that you have permission, right outside your front door, and I can't blame you there. But in terms of hunting those big woods and that sort of stuff, I know that I get a incredible enjoyment out of harvesting critters on public land. Even though private land deer, it's still very exciting. But that public land,
Oh yeah,
that Oak Ridge, fewer numbers of deer, do you get just that
yeah.
same excitement even this many years into hunting?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. I mean, well, we've been in pretty good sized heat wave here the last couple of weeks, and it's really kept me out of the woods here. It's just been absolutely miserable. We actually just got some rain here today that we've much needed. But yeah, I'm getting ready to start hitting it pretty good. Actually, I'm going Saturday morning. I've just bought a new trail camera. I'm gonna go Saturday morning. I've already got one trail camera on public land right now. I'm going to go hang another one on public land Saturday on another spot. I've hunted just public land for probably 10 or 11 years, and I've had so many spots that I like that now I just go find out and try to find out where the best oak mass is right now. And just that's usually the spots I usually hit
Right,
first.
right.
But yeah, I absolutely love. And then again, we talked about earlier the public land that I hunt on. It had some pretty strict buck restriction on it. So even if I was able, which I've never wanted to take one off there yet, but when you take a buck off that place, it's really something to
Right.
be proud of because it's
And I
going to be
have
a
to
nice
say
one.
this too, because this is another thing I get a lot with saddle hunting, and tie this into the public and private thing. And of course, we could skip past the young man's game and going in deep and all that sort of stuff. And I too, you'd
Yeah.
said it earlier off air, but like there's times where you pass up on a deer because you just don't want to drag the dumb thing out of the woods, and there are times where I
Oh
do the
yeah.
exact same thing. And I'm supposed to be the young man's game, but
Yeah.
it's interesting to me the more I talk to a lot of people that either hunt exclusively private, in particular states like Indiana where there's like almost no public land, and in Illinois where there's very little public land.
Mhm.
These guys are hunting exclusively private, but they still are going to a saddle or a more mobile system because they're tired of doing the old ladder stands and stuff. Did you do that a lot and you're just
Yeah.
kind of tired of that and you just want to be more mobile in general?
Well, yeah, it was something new. Like I said, the first time I was mentioned with saddle hunting, and I looked at it, I was like, "There's no way in the world." You know, 4 months later, I
Yeah.
ordered my first one. I mean, just I wore
Yeah.
YouTube out. I probably watched every saddle hunting video I could watch a dozen times. And replay them. Getting everybody's opinion and just watching everything. And it was just a big draw. Like I said, I am getting older, and I think you mentioned your knees, earlier, or your uncle,
Yeah.
your dad's knees. Your dad said his knees was. I mean, I never played sports, but I just contribute mine to run up down these
Yeah.
mountains my whole
Right.
life. I mean, it's took them toll on me. There's no doubt about it. I'll be 54 here in a few weeks, and and I am by no, I would never be on front of men's
Yeah.
health by no, no, I mean,
You and
no
me
way,
both.
shape or form. Yeah, nowhere close to it. So, I'm 5'10", 200 pounds, and I do have asthma too. And I haven't had trouble at very rare dollars, but you know, just and like I said earlier, my actual saddle with my ropes and everything I need right now, 4 pounds compared to the lightest portable stand I had was like 12. Most tree stand, climbing stands I had was average about 20 pounds, 20, 22 pound stand. And that's just a lot of weight to be carrying. And you mentioned earlier about the metal and dinging. And I don't care how much you try to silence it. You're always dropping something or banging something or something, and it's quieter, it's lighter, it's faster. The only downfall that I can even think about saddle hunting, and we talked about this earlier, is you know you can't go into one of these stores and look at it. You can't get hands on. Unless go. Tether's doing a good job. Well, they had a bunch of them. I guess most of them got canceled because of Corona. But if you can go somewhere that knows somebody that has one, and I'm all the time telling people every time I talk to somebody, I said, try mine. I don't care. Try it. I'll meet you at a public place. You don't have to come to my house. I don't have to come to yours. We'll meet somewhere public. I'll bring everything I've got and let you shot. And to this date, nobody's took me up on it. Like, I don't know. So,
Get worried about those
but
hillbillies down in
yeah,
West Virginia.
oh yeah. You ever seen
Yeah.
Wrong Turn?
It is true. But
Uh,
that's something that I think, and we talked maybe a little earlier about, that's something we're going to start seeing that paradigm shift. And if Hawks coming out with a saddle, which of course they're a big player in the tree stand.
oh, I didn't
Yeah,
know
Hawks
that.
coming out with a saddle. I think it's a whole saddle platform, like whole kit caboodle, because they had for all the DIYers, you might have seen it too. Some people would take the hawk had like a tree seat that you just bolted onto the tree, or not bolted, but
Yeah, I've seen
strapped to the
that.
tree and you
Yeah.
sat at ground level. And a lot of people were using that. Heck, I used an old steel tree stand seat, and I DIY'd my own platform. Thank God I have the Predator now, because that thing was sketchier than sketchy could be. And but a lot of people took that, and I think hawk tennis took notice, and so they're starting to produce, and they're of course a mass producer of tree stands and the hawk helium sticks and everything. So I think they'll start getting in, and now Trophy Line's part of the. They're a little bit bigger player in terms of the recognition. They're now in it. They're making a platform that's kind of like the Predator, and so there's a lot of people I think that are getting on the bandwagon, and I do not see this personally as a fad. I really don't. I really think it's going to be
Yeah.
around for quite some time.
Well, I heard a lot of that last year. I heard that thrown around quite
Yeah.
a bit last year. Oh, it's just a fad. It's just a fad. But no, I don't see that either. I think it's going to take off and, more every year, Still, I still run across a bunch of people that's never heard of it, or if they have heard of it, they don't really know anything about it, But yeah, I think it's great. Like I said, I don't ever see me going back to a stadium for no
I love
reason
seeing the pictures on Facebook of parents putting their kids in saddles. I think that's the coolest thing to me, and kids want to get, kids want to hunt out of the saddle with dad or grandpa or something like that. I think that's a real cool thing.
Yeah.
So I want to dive into, we talked the big woods and saddle hunting, and we talked passing up on deer. And there are certain reasons why we pass up deer, because we don't want to shoot them, that thing. But there's also, at least here in PA and down in West Virginia as well, we have antler restrictions in certain ways. And here in PA, we're a $1 state, and so I know, if I've got, now I don't run too many trail cameras on public, because people have sticky fingers on public land here in PA.
Yeah.
And so I know, I sometimes struggle with, I know there's a big buck in this area or a bigger buck, but then that legal 6-point, 7-point little basket rack walks past me. I only have one tag to fill, and he's probably going to taste the same, but do I want to hold off on shooting that buck? But down in certain other states, you have multiple bucks. Down in West Virginia, a $3 state. And we talked a little bit earlier, I kind of want to unpack it a little bit more, some of the pros and cons of the $1 state, $3 state, and how that plays. And we chat a little bit about CWD, which we could, that's a whole podcast series, but we could touch on a little bit. But go ahead. I kind of want to hear your perspective, folks at home, hear your perspective on the $3 state limit in West Virginia, how you feel about how that shapes your season and shapes your overall, how you would hunt those 3 seasons there.
Well, actually, I like it. Like I said, I have never killed 3 bucks in 1 year. I've killed multiple 2 bucks, multiple. Not because I didn't have the opportunity, just, a lot of times, especially if you shoot a decent 6 or 7 or 8, 9-point early on, then a little 4-point comes along. Yeah, maybe I'll wait on Big Brother to come. So it's a little bit easier. And like I said, over the last, I think I told you, 8 or 10 years, I think it just comes with age. I've started to let some of the smaller bucks pass myself. There is a push. There's a group that's called Better Buck Management for West Virginia or something like that. They've been a push for several years, trying to get changed to a $1. Actually, what they want to do is go down to a two buck state, and then go to a $1 state. But I think I've heard talk about, they also want to add antler restrictions on that. And my view is, if you do go to a 2 or a 1, don't put an antler restriction on it. If somebody's only got that $1 to kill, don't make it any harder than what it already is. And it's almost the same way as several years ago when they, probably about 3 or 4 years ago now, when they legalized crossbows. Before, it was on, you had to have a certain permit from a doctor to be able to shoot one. Then they legalized them for everybody. And there was a big group of people that was pushing back, saying, no, the poaching rate's going to go up. And my argument was, somebody's going to poach. I don't care if it's a crossbow or, a 500 BMG. They're going to shoot what they're going to shoot, And after the first year, the numbers, a lot of, I think, of people that bow hunted, or not a lot, but I think several people that bow hunted actually went into crossbow hunting. Me, my father-in-law bought me one a couple of years ago for Christmas. I shot a deer with it. To me, it's just not me. I love, the thrill of that beer being there, and you got to come back to full draw and stuff. That's why I don't, and I used to say this when I was younger. I don't know how I feel, but I said I'd rather deer with a bow than I would miss one I would rather miss a deer with a bow than shoot one with a gun. I just have such a passion for bow hunting, and but crossbow, I think, has gotten maybe some of the older people that can't shoot a vertical bow anymore is back in the woods, because I know we mentioned very rarely talked about this earlier. About hunters numbers are dropping across across this country in every state. And I think crossbows might have brought those numbers back up just a little bit. For some of the older people that might not be able to pull the bow back like they are. So, but yeah, we are a 3 buck state, and like I said, we talked earlier. Not all private land, public land. Sorry, I talked about, but I think there's like a dozen of different public lands throughout the state. Does have a restriction. You're allowed 1 buck. I know the one that's very close to my house here is one of them. You're only allowed 1 buck, and it has to have a minimum 14-inch spread. There's no point restriction on it, just a spread restriction. And to this day, I've seen a couple nice ones up there, but I've got some on camera right now that even midsummer they're already out past their ears. So come time fall comes around, they're going to be very legal. And but between now and then, getting back on them, man, it's not always easy. They get big for a reason.
Run the run the number, because I didn't put it down in my notes. How long ago did you guys legalize crossbows?
I don't remember exactly. I'm thinking 3 to 4 years.
Oh, so it's fairly recent. That's what I thought.
So, I know it's been within 5 years anyway. Yeah.
Okay.
Like I said, I don't know exactly, because I just never, it was just never for me. Now, my oldest son, he loves it. He shot, I think, 1 deer with a bow one time, and he just really never got into it. Man, when they legalized crossbows, his eye just lit up, and he said, "Oh yeah." So we bought him one. He loves it. But I guess I'm old school or whatever. I've always loved.
and I'm old school too. It's interesting. We legalized crossbows, I want to say close to 9-10 years ago. It might be just a skosh sooner than that. I can't remember off the top of my head. But again, it was the medical thing. And my father-in-law actually was medically disabled. Actually received a lung transplant 5 years ago because of his disability. And he always hunted with a crossbow. And that is awesome that now everybody can do it. But 2, I think the biggest thing is now is, and I don't know what your opener is like in PA when it comes to the guns, or in West Virginia when it comes to the gun season. It seems like it's always sleeting and snowing sideways, our opener of the gun season here. It's just nasty. It's cold. And the cool thing for me working in the education system, I teach middle schoolers, and that's right around that time when they can start carrying their own weapon. They can start doing all that sort of stuff. And now when I started hunting, crossbows weren't legal for the youth. And so I had to be out there in gun season, and I had to freeze my butt off. But now I can have a kid come into school the first week of October and tell me they shot their first deer in 65-degree weather out of the blind with grandpa with the crossbow. And that just warms my heart. Now, it did increase a lot of the people that, in my opinion, should be hunting with a bow that are now hunting with a crossbow. But at the same time, at least for us here, I know in certain states like in Wisconsin, it's actually a separated season. There's a crossbow only season and an archery season. I'm glad we don't have that. I don't mind, it's getting more people in the woods. Again, it does bring in a lot of the older crowd. And quite frankly, I've seen a slight shift that people are going out with the crossbows. They're obviously way more proficient than they ever were with a bow, and they're harvesting their deer in October, November, and there's fewer idiots running around with 30-06s the Monday after Thanksgiving. And so people are like, oh, gun hunting, used to see all these deer getting pushed. And I'm like, well, you got to go find them. There's fewer people in the woods in gun season, which I'm okay with. Not that we ever have accidents. I don't think we've had an accident in PA in a very, very long, a mortality type of accident with a firearm in a very, very long time. But yeah, I think it's cool. I'm I'm on the fence with certain things, just like you are down there in West Virginia, but I think it does do a lot of positives in a lot of different ways. And I'm glad that they're around. I wish crossbow manufacturers though wouldn't have commercials shooting their bows out to 100 yards though.
Yeah, I think that gives the wrong image to novice. People really don't know. Yeah.
Just like a gun, right? And like
that. I mean, it's not for me, but I'm not going to bash anybody. I don't care, what their age is or health. I don't care. If that's what you want to do, if it's legal and you want to do it, that's fine. Yeah, as long as you buy your tags and do everything right like I do, I have no problem with it. And that's kind of the same with the push for the wooden buck limit here. A lot of people are like, but $1, and if that's all you want to shoot, fine. But I just feel like don't try to force it on me. Which I don't ever shoot $3. And I may never. Like I said, I usually average hopefully most of the time. I average $2 a year. But I try to, even I told you earlier, I try to keep it even between bucks and does. Like I said, the one buck back there behind me that I shot early last year out of the saddle, I had one more archery tag for a buck, and I saved it for November. So I harvested a doe, a few weeks later. So, and then, but that, that's how I was, I did end up eating a little bit of tag soup last year, but
You got a
that
lot of
happens.
tags to put in that soup.
Yeah.
If I got like one or two maybe to eat a little
Yeah.
eat a little tag soup. But I want to talk about the doe thing. You're shooting. You're trying to offset the number of mouths you feed. And usually I'm all for the $1 state. Ohio's a $1 state, PA is a $1 state. A lot of states are $1 state. I'm usually a huge proponent of that.
Yeah.
Kentucky is. I'm usually a huge proponent of that. But in certain, like for example, in West Virginia, just talking again back to the population numbers, number of people you have there, even if every hunter shot $3, every bow hunter shot $3 in West Virginia, you probably still like if we here in PA every bow hunter shot $3, we'd have a hurt on the deer population. But down in your way, just the number of hunters versus amount of land mass and just the whitetail thing, it makes a lot more sense. So I've gotten in some heated discussions with people about, you want the whole country. I don't want the whole country. There are certain places where it makes sense. We talked, about Jonathan down in Tennessee. There's so many stinking deer in Tennessee, or at least where he's hunting. There's so many stinking deer in Tennessee. He could shoot as many as he likes. It's good YouTube footage. But it definitely makes sense to keep that. And I have a problem with changing up tradition. If that's something that kind of sticks, we had a lot of fight here. We put in antler restrictions here in PA, and that was a big thing. And there's still kind of the stigma of, do you shoot does or do you not shoot does? There's a lot of old stigmas that stick around, and I'm glad that there's some paradigm shifts in certain places. But I'm glad there in West Virginia, you guys are kind of sticking to your guns on that one, because I think it's good. I think it's good for the hunting.
Well, I want to say something real quick too. I can't recall how long ago it was, but several years ago, at one time we was a $5 state.
Oh my. Okay.
Yeah.
So and you have come down.
Oh yeah. Well, originally, when they went from 5, they dropped it to a $2 state for 1 year, and they had such a backlash that they moved it to $3, and it's been like that for a long time. So I just don't know what. Of course, there's not as many hunters in the woods as there used to be. And we've talked about that. So I think the only way you could really do it, you would have to ask every single hunter that buys their license, each and every single one, not just a poll on Facebook, because not everybody's on Facebook, not a poll at your local courthouse, because not everybody goes, in my opinion, you would have to ask every single hunter that buys their license here in West Virginia, are you in favor of it or no? Yes or no? Plain and simple. And to me, I don't think that's ever happened, just to get everybody's opinion, to see exactly, what the majority, and I ain't saying, just because everybody wants it, that's where it should go. But, just to be fair about it, get everybody's opinion on it, not just, 50% or 80%, 100% everybody. That's just the way I look at it.
Right.
But everybody don't have to see the way I think.
Yeah. I have to ask, because this, again, I'm coming from a state where, I'm shooting one deer, our doe licenses are separated. They're by rounds. I don't get them automatically. So really we get about 2. If you push yourself, you can get 3 or 4 tags if you really, but still $1 and then multiple does. I have to ask, because 2 deer for my family is perfect for the whole year to go through. But, you're putting 3, 4, 5 deer in the freezer, if you will. Are you finding, because I have to ask just my own personal curiosity, are you eating, or are you donating, or are you sharing with friends and family?
I'm glad you brought that up. I was, some of my notes I had earlier, and we've gotten talking into everything we got. I am a huge proponent of helping. In West Virginia, it's called the Hunters Helping the Hungry. I know most states have these things.
Yep.
Absolutely. I donate as much as I can. Yeah. Because I've got me, my wife, my two sons, and my oldest son actually just moved out last week. He just turned 21. He just finally moved out. Finally,
Yeah.
Mama's heart still hurt a little bit.
Yeah.
He comes back every day.
Yeah. You're tired of paying the grocery bill with him.
Yeah,
You know?
he won't be far, but I mean, for the most part, 2 or 3 deer will last us a long time. But
Okay.
I've actually in the last couple of years really gotten into doing different, like Grant Lemons. He's got a great video on making deer sausage. I had never had deer sausage the last year. Man,
You never had deer sausage?
no.
Oh, that is my guilty pleasure. Venison
And
sausage, venison bratwurst, summer sausage, jerky.
yeah,
It's all the unhealthy stuff.
yeah. So, I mean, in years past, I would keep like a couple hams for the, crock pot or cut some up in stew meat or whatever. But the majority of it was just always, of course, tenderloin. We always kept it out for, to fix it. But most of it was always just ground up because we use so much ground meat and so much stuff, just perfectly natural. But no, I always try to donate at least, one deer per year, And if I get 4 deer, I'll probably, good chance of them 2 of them's getting donated. Yeah, I am a huge, fan of helping, any state that has a program like that, or unless, maybe a family that's, could use a little bit extra help, even if you do it yourself or take it to a butcher and just have a whole deer ground up in a burger, and take it to them, that $50 or $100 they save at the store that month might be able to help them do something else, yeah, and I even on our license, when we go to buy a license online, it has a place where you can donate money to the program Hunters for the Hungry, and I donate money every year. Yeah, I'm a huge fan of helping, and I think everybody, if you hunt for yourself, that's fine, but if you don't need the meat, yeah, definitely donate it either to a program or family or something like that. Yeah, I'm a huge fan of doing that. And I always try to donate at least 1 deer a year, at least.
Yeah. And I think that's something that I had kind of forgotten about. Again, I don't shoot that many deer. The deer that I usually shoot, I was for quite some time where I went 9 years for in a drought shooting a buck because part of it was the antler restrictions. Part of it, I was going through college. I was getting my first job. I just didn't hunt that much, and I did shoot a doe all those years, and so that meat stayed in our family. But there was one year where I did shoot 3, and there was no way we were going to eat 3, and so I did donate the one. And I don't know how much it gets used, and I kind of completely forgot about it until I saw Jonathan there at Catman on YouTube, and he donates at least 1, if not 2, sometimes up to 3 down in Tennessee for the Hunters Feeding the Hungry. And I know there was for a while. I don't think it's the same anymore in PA, but there was you had to pay a fee. So like you still had to take it and then pay a fee to have them process it, like $30 or so. It wasn't great, but I know that pushed a lot of people because like, well, I went out and shot the thing, and I'm like, you're feeding a lot of very
Yeah, I mean, what's $30 to you and
unfortunate people.
somebody
Right.
that food could mean so much
Right.
to somebody?
So I
Yeah.
still, if I shoot 3 deer, and I'm still been trying to do it so I could do it, but I still always would give it because a lot of the people that are the processors for it, one of the processors here locally in my little county here, it's just a wife and a husband and wife doing it out of their garage. They have a big pole barn type thing right here, almost in like our little city and our little town, and that's just what they're doing. I know where she works. I know he drives truck. These people aren't billionaires. Fork them $20 to go donate that
Yeah.
deer, $30,
Yeah, because
$40, whatever,
they're
to go
using their
donate that
time,
deer,
to do it. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Their machinery and the
Yeah.
cleaning stuff and
Yeah.
everything,
There's
and
no
all the
charge
knives
here,
and
but
whatnot.
like I said, I donate money to it every year when I buy my license, and and I try to, always I like, and another thing too. I mean, just get you out in the woods more. If you've already got your deer, go
Yeah,
ahead and get one from somebody else. Yeah,
yeah.
another chance to
I
hunt.
kind of That's interesting. You bring up the online thing. I've kind of thought at certain times that I wouldn't cry over adding a $2 to our licenses to go help pay for
Yeah.
that. My general license just for put $2
Yeah.
on it, and then think of I think it's something like we have like a little over 800,000 hunters here in PA.
Yeah.
800. That's a chunk of change at $2
Yeah. That
per
you would never
license
miss. That's
sold.
a drink at a convenience store. Yeah.
Yeah, not even, it depends, it
Yeah,
depends on
yeah,
what you buy. And,
yeah,
these people, you go down to Dunkin' Donuts and get your coffee before work 5 days a week, spend $3. But just, if it was $2, I've often thought that would be a really unique thing. And everybody's against raising the price of hunting licenses. Everybody is, always and forever. And PA is still pretty cheap for a resident. It's like, granted, you're only going to get the one tag, but it's still like $21. And that's cheap for a whole deer, and two turkey, one for fall, one for the spring, and that's pretty stinking good. And I would have no problems if they tacked on extra $2, and that was part of the thing. I think that's a very underutilized and underappreciated program. And you bring up
it is.
you bring up too.
I like to try to mention that anytime I
Yeah, and you
can
bring up
too.
too,
Yeah.
giving it to families. A lot of our local churches run food banks and that sort of stuff. And I know there are families where, the venison that they go out and hunt, maybe it's a father-son combo, and that's the family's red meat for the entire year. And um there are times where it's been they don't get anything. Well, again, if you know that person, I don't know a male colleague at my school that doesn't. Well, I know one, but I'm not too worried about him. But the rest of them, they all hunt in some way, shape, or form, and they rely on that meat for a good portion of their grocery bill. And so I've given a backstrap to a guy because, he's got a whole bunch more mouths at home to feed than I do. And I don't need that one backstrap, or here's a couple pounds of ground or something like that. It's a real good way to share some incredibly organic meat too. Like that's the other cool
Oh
part.
yeah. Like I say, you don't have to go through the program. You can do it yourself. If you just know somebody that, you know, I mean, everybody knows somebody I think could use an extra meal or something down the line. But then again, not everybody likes deer meat.
Yeah, I know. Well, it's funny. Like you were talking about the ground thing. That's like my wife and I put so much into it's tacos, it's lasagna, it's sausage, it's burger, it's more,
Yeah,
that
spaghetti,
spaghetti and
chili,
chill. I mean,
just
there's endless
endless.
thing. I'm not actually really just a sit down and chew on a hunk of red meat guy in general, beefsteak or pork. It's just not something for me. But I'll put ground in just about 57,000 different ways. And the sausage is my guilty pleasure. I have the same processor that I alluded to earlier. The wife, she makes the best 3 pound log of hot venison bologna. Oh, it's got hot pepper, high temp hot pepper cheese in it. Oh my gosh, I could sit down and eat a chunk of that, and I regret it about 2 hours later sitting on the throne. But it's well worth the price of admission there, so I'll take it any day of the week. Well, Brian, I can't thank you enough for coming on to the podcast today. But is there anything, and by way of social media, that the folks at home could follow along with the guy with the best hair in West Virginia?
Yeah, mullet
Mullet
man.
man,
I think
business
the
in the
best is
front,
mullet
party in
man.
the back, man.
There's a mullet man already on YouTube, but yeah, I'm rocking them all. I used to tell people all the time I was born in the '60s, I was raised in the '70s, but I'm a product of the '80s.
Beautiful. It's
But
wonderful.
um, yeah, Instagram, you can find me on BKBowhunter, which I do post a lot of my trail cam pictures and stuff like that that don't make it on my YouTube channel. My YouTube channel is BKBowhunter1 because when I started it, BKBowhunter was taken. I've never checked again to see if it's still available, but I had to put a 1 on the end of it. So anyway, that's my YouTube channel there. And like I said, about everybody who subscribes to me, I subscribe back, which I've already got you. So
That's good.
you and Budget Sportman. His name's Nate too, also, isn't it?
Yeah, that's Nate. Yeah, yeah, and he lives about 40 minutes away, so it's
Yeah,
it's it's a good friendship we
yeah,
got. So
that's good to go. But other than that, that's pretty much it. But I do have, I actually just got a new little handy cam in this year, and I do have an action cam this year. So I really do, and that's one of my goals this year to really start trying to put a little bit more footage in. So, if you want to check out the channel, it's not the best in the world. I'm going to tell you that right now, but it's fun. I enjoy doing it.
well, if you go
But
back and watch all my old stuff, it's not amazing either.
yeah. But
So
hopefully I get a little bit better this year, and then
yeah.
next year, which I'm actually got my eye on an elite bow. I'm trying to work in before the bow season gets here. I'm shooting a Matthews right now, but I'm really wanting an elite. Actually,
I
I was
forgive
planning on
you.
getting it. I was planning on getting it last year, but I had spent so much money on saddle hunting
Yeah.
that I had to put it on the back burner.
Yeah.
But other than that, yeah, that's pretty much it. I said my first one. Anytime you want to hit me back up for anything, I'd be more than glad. And if you ever want to make a trip down here to hunt some of these mountains, just let me know. We
I
can hook you
appreciate
up.
it, bud.
All
Thanks
right,
so
just let
much.
me
Well,
know anytime.
folks, if you want to be just like Brian, be on the podcast and just hang out with me for an hour or so, please averagejackarchery@gmail.com. Hit me up on Facebook and Instagram. Send me a YouTube comment. Be glad to have you on and talk with you. Hope you're able to get outside, enjoy the sport of archery hunting if you so choose. Definitely enjoy God's beautiful creation, and we'll get to see you next time.